Well, good morning, everybody. It is me, Pacific. I haven't done this, not on YouTube anyway, but it's time. These are my observations and opinions as having drove a school bus total of 25 plus years in 4 states in the USA. I started driving a church bus, 1970s International Lodestar 30-passenger Thomas, gas engine with vacuum brakes, automatic, Thomas body. I was asked by one of the church leaders if I wanted to be involved in the bus ministry. And I had just moved to Duluth, Minnesota from Arizona. He and his wife became my Minnesota ma and pa. They had me over for the holidays. They were very nice people. Both of them are deceased. And I thought he meant going door to door on Saturday, knocking on doors to see who was going to ride the bus to go to church. And I said, yeah. I said, do you think I could learn to drive the bus? He says, no, that's what I want you for. The gentleman that's doing it has been doing it for years, and he's getting tired of it, and he wants to get off of it. And that was in 1989. And I got my license to drive a bus. Sunday mornings, I loved it. It was an easy bus to maneuver. I was remodeling a church member's home, scraping paint off, molding, taking corkboard off a wall. Beautiful home he had bought and had some 70s stuff added to it that he wanted to pull out. Excuse me. He was a school teacher in Duluth. And one day I was working on the house. I heard the doorbell ring, and I opened the door, and there's a young man there, and I saw the school bus parked out front. He asked if the son was there. I said, no, he's at college. I said, do you drive that bus? He said, yes. I said, how do I get on with that? He named the company. He said, just go apply. They need drivers. I applied. It took time. It took like almost 2 months. I finally got hired. Started driving Ford Ward Gasser automatics with air brakes. S-Series International with DT466's stick shifts. My first route bus was 380, a Ford Ward with 300,000 miles on it, stick shift with a Detroit diesel, and it was cold-blooded in good old Duluth. I loved driving a bus. And for some time, I was driving a bus 7 days a week. Church bus on Sunday, school bus all week. My boss gave me permission. I'd have to do a Sunday trip. And the gentleman would pick me up for the church bus at my house Sunday morning. We'd go out to the bus company. I'd grab my bus, park it at the church. And I would get in the church bus, do the route, go to church, take the kids home, park the bus, get in the school bus, and do my trip. I don't know anybody else who was doing 7 days a week, and I took everything they threw at me. And I admit, when I started the first time, I did a junior high school field trip, and it was a cold day, and the kids get on, and they said, hey, homie. I was intimidated. I looked up in the mirror. I was like, oh my gosh. Excuse me, I got over a cold. We have some pollen dropping and have some allergies. But I loved it. Kids scared me. I made my mistakes when I first started. I tried to be friends with the kids. That didn't work. But you know what? I loved driving the bus. It'd be 27 below. There'd be snow on the ground. The wind would be howling. I'd get up in my apartment, my bedroom window overlooked Lake Superior. I thought I was in God's country. I'd ride the city bus all the way to work. Never was late. Perfect attendance. Never missed a beat. Go get my bus ready, scrape off ice and snow, sweep off the back, pre-trip it. One of my references even said that I did my pre-trip every day, that I hadn't missed a day. And I used to tell Gene, the late Gene Barber, who was over the bus ministry at a little Baptist church, I said, you know what, Gene? I still love driving the bus. And he used to just get so excited about that. He says, you're a good driver. You're good with the kids. As years went by, I saw something ugly rear its ugly head. We all have stories where we've been through stuff with children. I know when I drove for a big city out Midwest America, I remember driving in the 90s and I had a middle school route that nobody wanted. When big men that I worked with came to me and said, you been on Route 2041? I said, yeah. And the guy says, hoo-wee, man. He says, they don't, nobody want to drive them kids. And I went out the day after Thanksgiving. That was a holiday. And I showed up. My supervisor was in there. She goes, what are you doing here? I said, I wanted to get the bus ready for Monday. I bid on a new route. And she goes, oh, which one? I told her. She goes, well, you know, it's a day off. I said, yeah. But I said, have you seen this bus? She goes, well, let's go walk out and look. We went out. It was one of those Ford diesel 65 passenger bus automatics with a Ward bus body. And they had taken the seat belts and tied them in knots across the aisle of the seat posts. The metal box under the back seat that was supposed to be for chains for the snow was full of sandwiches, spilled, I don't know what, and candy and all manner of horrific moldy stuff. There was garbage everywhere, and every single seat back was ripped at least that wide with big chunks of stuffing all over the bus. And she walked in there and said, oh my gosh. She goes, you go ahead and clock in. I'm going to pay you for this. This is not okay, and I'm going to pay you. And I said, I didn't come here to get extra hours. She goes, no. She goes, I'm going to pay you. You shouldn't have to get in a bus like that. And she goes, look at these seats. I remember when Monday came and I picked up the kids, I thought, oh my gosh. And I'm going to mention racial issues here. We live in a culture where people have been bullied into being silent. I'm not going to do it. We have a media today that is ganging up on, I'm going to be honest, my race, saying things that whites are privileged, whites are white supremacists. If you're a conservative, you're automatically a white supremacist. I'm not going to get into all of the political ins and outs, but just to mention that these dynamics interfere with what we're trying to do as bus drivers. I don't drive a bus anymore. I do something different now. And I'm going to tell you about that soon. When I started that route, there was Hispanic, white, black, and Asian on that bus. It was a middle school that had a reputation. That middle school today doesn't have a white person in it. The address I went to, if I drop that address in that location, everybody groans and says, oh my gosh. It was apartment complexes. I was the only bus for that middle school. Now there's 7 or 10 that pull in there. Nepalese, Ethiopian, Nigerian. It's no longer called what it is. The name of the building is the same, but it went from a middle school to an academy. When I drove it in the 90s, 2 Hispanic girls got up I pulled up in the parking lot of this apartment and kids would spill out of the bus. And they started fighting and pulling hair. And I'm at my driver's seat. I already had the brakes, said I had to get up and stand between them. I said, need you to get off at your stop and please sit down. And the kids were picking up stuffing and picking it out of the seats and throwing stuff out the windows and yelling and screaming. And I remember looking in the mirror and said, and I signed up for this. Why? It took me 1 month by myself to turn that bus around. I even had a monitor. One day the kids were out of control and I raised my voice and a monitor on board says, you don't need to yell. I said, excuse me, do you see what they're doing? I went into my dispatcher and I said, Jan, can you please get the monitor off of my bus? Pacific, you need a monitor. That's a bad route. And I said, if I can't do this, then I don't belong in this job. Are you sure about this, Pacific? Yes, ma'am. I pulled up that afternoon. Hey, where's the bus monitor? I said, you don't need one. You guys aren't babies. We're not in a daycare center. You're teenagers. If you guys can't pull it together, how are you going to get through life? I met the principal. He was African American. I went and told him what was going on, what I was dealing with. I told him about the condition of the bus. I said, I'm going to need your help because I'm trying to get this bus into shape. The principal worked with me. He said, you're the first driver that ever came into my office, introduced yourself, and told me your plan. He says, I respect you. Excuse me. He said, I will back you. He came out and he says, if this man writes up any of you and you get into my office, you're going to be off the bus and a call's going to be made to your parents. He said, this is ridiculous. And he did. Towards the end of the year, I had several Hispanic girls come up to my bus and said, you know what? You care about us. I said, well, yes, I do. They said, you're the only driver that stayed with us. Folks, let me tell you about that bus. Pretty Hispanic women with sleeveless shirts. They'd walk up to my bus, put their arms in the air, and one says, I'm clean and smooth, bus driver. Being as sexy as she can, I said, go sit down, please. I was driving down a busy rush hour street in a metro area with that route. I was going slow. It had snowed. As I'm coming down the hill in rush hour traffic, 4 lanes with a suicide lane in the middle, the bus starts to slide. And of course, we all get nervous. I wasn't going fast. I saw the ice. And as the bus is sliding, and I'm thinking, great, the light's red at the bottom of the hill. This is going to be fun. And everybody has different ways. I'm sure bus drivers will criticize this. This wasn't a San Francisco hill. It was a gradual one. And I'd shift the transmission into neutral, fan the brake, do what I got to do, taking the power off the wheels. And once it stops sliding, I put it back in gear. There are some bus drivers say, you never take it out of gear. We're not on a mountain grade. We're in a city. And let me tell you, that has saved my butt many, 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 many times. I've done it in standard transmissions. You simply push in the clutch. You're out of gear. I did it in Duluth, Minnesota. I had steep hills that were icy months out of the year. I had to go down this hill all the time. One day I finally reversed course and told my boss, I said, is there any reason I got to go down this hill? I want to go up it. He said, you can change that. I remember going down that nasty hill. I'd be hugging snowbank, man, just for traction. I'd get that right front wheel in that snowbank, not damaging the bus body or anything. My dispatcher said, Pacific, you have been here. You drove 380 and I never once heard you, and I'm going to use language. I'm going to repeat what was said. I never heard you bitching about driving that bus. And we had a lady at that bus company. She was pretty arrogant, pretty smug, and looked down on certain of us that weren't part of her clique. You know, when you work in transportation, you work with good people, but you also work with people that they themselves haven't grown up and they're driving children. I'm just going to be honest. Not only are you dealing with road hazards and weather and children, and you come back and you're dealing with some of your own coworkers and you're going, my gosh. Then the dispatcher said she complained about driving that bus all the time. The other driver got stuck on that route you're doing constantly. You're not even from this area. You came from Arizona and you walk a mile from the last city bus turnaround out the road to the bus. And we're laughing. We're complaining about the cold. We're all bundled up and you're walking through that ridiculous weather and you get in the bus and drive it and you're not getting stuck. And we're just going, and that's something. I aimed to please. I cared about my boss being happy. I didn't want parents calling in. I had a road. It was a 55-mile-an-hour road out in the country, and I'd do a student pickup, wait for them to get seated, shut the door, signal, move to the right, let all the traffic by. Why am I saying this? Why am I tooting my horn? Because I'm not one of those bus drivers that doesn't care. You have bus drivers that love getting traffic stuck behind them. Not me. I don't like being stuck behind trash trucks, slow moving vehicles. When I say slow, under the speed limit when there's no reason for it. Somebody sent a letter to my boss and said, I really want to thank the driver of 380. He pulls over every time after his stops and lets all the traffic go by. We're all going to work. And he's one of the first drivers that doesn't allow the traffic to just build up. And we really appreciate that. A school bus driver is not just to take kids to and from school. He's a public representative of the schools. He's a public representative of the big yellow billboard on the roads. I've been through the entire gamut of psychology of driving a school bus. When you first get in it, you think you're all big and I'm in a school bus and you wear it on your sleeve. Then as life goes by, you realize no matter how good you are, you can still get in an accident. You could still handle a student the wrong way, blow up verbally, or get caught in their little power struggle and be foolish enough to enter the arena and actually argue with the foolish student. Today, 2023, when I look back on that route, that middle school route, I grew to love those kids. But I did a rabbit trail as I was sliding down that major street. That was an arterial route to downtown. So, of course, everybody's going to the office, high rises, and I'm in that flow. And guess what? I'm shifting the neutral and fanning the brakes, and a white kid comes running down the aisle with a plastic horsey. I'm not kidding. This is the truth. Comes running down the aisle, puts the horsey right in front of my face from behind. See my horsey? I'm sliding. I get control of the bus and I said, dude, you need to sit down. Do you see what is going on? Want to see my horsey? And I actually just laughed. And that whole bus laughed. They saw me show humanity. I couldn't help it. I'm like, that was the dumbest thing to do, but yet it was funny. You know, we could have slid into all of them cars. You want to see my horsey? That student was in the front seat many times, and one day he said, I wish I had a dad. I wish I could go camping. I wish I could do things that boys do. And I just looked at him and I said, I didn't know that. He said, you're cool, bus driver. He said, I know it's hard on you, but he said, you're pretty cool. Fast forward. To 2023, 2022. I moved across the country to a place I'd never been. Thought it would be easy, started driving a bus. And now we're going to talk about some things that are going to make people very uncomfortable. And I'm going to use a term, the Karens out there are going to have a problem with this. But this is my story. I didn't grow up racist. I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to Walteria Elementary School in Torrance. Guess what? Black, Vietnamese, Mexican, white. I don't remember there being any major problems at our school. I walked home with all different kids. Most of my routes, there wasn't a white, Hispanic, or Asian student on it. They were all African American. I have learned a lot about the African American community when I was driving for this location. I'm not going to get into all of the dynamics that involve the African American community. But anybody who's been around people, anybody who pays attention knows that in any race, in any people dynamic groups, whether it's bus drivers or office people or mechanics, there are dynamics. There are pros and cons. There's the good and the bad and the ugly. I get on a bus route where third graders are using terms like BITCH, FUCK, WHORE. Boy, jump up out of a seat, jump over the tops of the seats, and be on a girl cold cocking her in the face. This was new to me. And I stop and try to pull them off. Other drivers are saying, "Oh, don't ever do that." I said, I can't just let a kid tear up somebody. And I never did anything that violated anything. But as time went by and I worked at it, I said, nope, you call on the radio. There were fights every day. Pull up at a middle school. One of the kids doesn't want to wait in the back of the bus, slides out the window and drops down to the curb. I had to sub a route one day, and the kids told their African-American driver, we don't want that white boy driving our bus. Folks, let me tell you something. Racism is a two-way street, and it goes on in every race, not just mine. I come with love. I come with wanting to understand. I come with wanting to learn. A lot of kids today, they have no fear. They don't care. They've been spoiled. They haven't been disciplined. I was running errands yesterday. I'm remodeling my home. And I heard a preacher. My memory fails me for the name. I hadn't heard him before. He had a strong British accent. And he was talking about kids today. He said they don't have respect. They don't have fear. And I wish I could have recorded this and put it on blast. But he was talking about America, and he said, the public school system. He said the teachers are afraid of the principal. The principal's afraid of the school board. The school board's afraid of the parents. And the parents are afraid of the children. And boom, bang, that's it. And I'm going to talk about some stuff. I had a student, high school student, there was a problem daily. Come on the bus smelling strong of marijuana, and I would tell the students, look, please stop doing that before you get on the bus. I use the bus for training students about bus evacuation and bus safety. You stink it up the bus. You have kids on here that don't want to smell it. and I'm going to say something. I know our society is real open about marijuana usage. I'm not. I never have been. This kid would run his mouth. He was defiant. I'd tell him to sit in the front, and he'd sit behind me going, da, 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 da. I said, dude, I got a bus to drive. I'm about bus safety. I'm not going to have any more discussion with you. We'll talk to the administrator at the school. And this game went on and on and on. The administrator says, well, we don't have any proof. I said, can you not smell it? And bus drivers from one end of America to the other, from stem to stern, are well aware of the fact it is rare. It depends on where you are in the country. You have some districts that don't tolerate this stuff. You have some school districts out there that back their drivers. Thank you. You have no idea how much stress you reduce by backing your drivers. But I've worked for schools that are increasingly bowing and succumbing to the pressure of the bar being lowered on the expectations of today's children. I grew up getting my butt spanked. I grew up in California public schools, Mammoth High School to be exact, in the Sierra Nevadas. Mr. Maruka was the principal. I had to go to him twice and get a SWAT. My parents signed a corporal punishment for me. California, you can't even spank your kid out there now. The bus driver could pull over and grab me by the front of the shirt. Pacific, are you going to continue to mess around? No. You can't do that today. And my observations are as follows. Dr. Spock came out years ago saying that spanking bruises the child's ego and it's bad, bad, bad. My observation in 25 years of student management, and nobody is perfect at this. And I come into contact with people that said, oh, I don't have any problem on my bus. Yeah, You live in a small town, you know everybody, and the parents will give you their phone number. That's easy to brag about. I'm amazed at how many bus drivers actually think that they embody such perfection. They say they don't have any problem. What does that mean? Are they friends with all the kids? We don't know all the answers to that. But I tell you what, I promise you this, there are places you can go in the country that bus drivers that have nice little snow globe bus routes. They come to some of the places I've driven for. They'll go out with their tail between their legs and say, I surrender. First thing I want to tell you, you're not in control of those children. They're either in control of themselves or they're not. And I tell students all the time, I had a busload of rowdies. They said, you just like driving bus because you want to control people. I said, no, that's not true. I said, I love the machine. I said, I love driving a big bus. I said, I don't want to babysit you guys. I want you guys to police yourselves. You got bus drivers that are just petty Annie. Don't put your foot in the aisle. Turn around. Don't turn the other way in your seat. Don't do this. Don't do that. Rules, rules, and more rules. I've driven in areas that are so bad that I'm just trying, if I can get them to get seated and not beat up each other, I consider that a miracle. But this gentleman, he wasn't on the bus for some time. And in the afternoon, I was dropping off that route. He sees me coming, and I was nice enough to wave. And he stands in the street and goes like this. But okay, I didn't ride it up. It's off the bus. One day he's standing out there smoking marijuana. You can smell it, see the cloud rolling. I pull up, I open the door. I said, hold it. I need to call my dispatcher. I said, why are you smoking pot right here where I can see it? And that's my right. I said, no, it's illegal for you, but hold on. He says, well, you need to wait for me to finish. I said, no, I don't need to wait for you to finish, but I need to find out if I even have to transport you. Call dispatch. Described in detail, high school route, what bus, blah, blah, blah. Shocked. Pacific, you will need to transport that student. And inside I'm going, why? I didn't respond. I was internally fuming and trying to maintain my composure in front of a load of students. How demoralizing it is when bus driver has no rights. I wrote up the kid. He ran his mouth almost the entire way to the school, and I called him by name. I said, you, I don't know why you ride my bus. You want to argue with me? You want to disrespect me? Why don't you walk? It's not that far. You can smoke your blunt all the way to school. Why don't you just do that and avoid all this? Because I don't want to walk. So you want to get on here and you want to take me on. Man, dude, I just want to drive you all to school. I don't want to get into your issues. The guy accused me of racism. A busload of all black students, and I'm racist because I have to deal with his behavior. I was slated to meet the parents. The school had asked me, he says, we're going to look at removing him from the bus for the rest of the year, but we're going to have you meet the parents. I said, okay, that's fine. I told my then supervisor, I said, I really want you in that meeting with me. Why, Pacific? I think you can handle it. I said, I need you there. I'm not going into this lion cage by myself. That meeting didn't happen. Several weeks before, I was doing 9 routes in an afternoon. We have 3 tiers, doubles 3 tiers, plus 3 shuttles. That's a lot. The summer before, they decided to extend the routes. They were supposedly going to try to get rid of having to do doubles. And I simply asked the question. I said, okay, now you're lengthening your routes, but if drivers continue to call in, who's going to cover these other routes? The new manager that had come in and said, oh, you're not going to have, she said to my face, you're not going to have to do doubles anymore. We're going to eliminate that. I don't even think a month after school went by, she got on with another district and left after creating some sour feelings, sour grapes. And then they wanted you to take attendance of the students. Check off their name Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, morning and afternoon, when you're doing routes with 70, 80, and I'm going to say it, standing in the aisle, students doing doubles. And they wonder why there's a shortage. I am not going to mention school districts. The purpose is not to shame school districts. The purpose is not to shame the employers I worked for. I try to do my job well. I love my job, and I want to please my employer, not as a butt kisser, but as one where management has confidence that when Michael was out on his bus, that's me, that he's doing his job and we don't even have to give it a second thought. I want the parents to feel confident of my driving. And there was a joy of working with the African-American community when mothers come out with a surly look on their face. You wrote up my kid. And I'd very calmly say, yes, ma'am. Your kid was doing this, moved the child to the front seat. He flew up out of that seat, called the girl a bitch, said F you, called her a H-O, punched her in the face. He did a lot of things that I tried to talk with him about, but once he hit her, he crossed the line. And the mother put her hand on her hips. Come back. You didn't tell me all this. I'm sorry, Michael. Let me give you my number. You have a problem with my kid, you call me. That even in an environment today that is racially charged, I had many black women respect me because they saw the way I was carrying myself. They didn't see me as a racist. We had a rule. Kids had to be 9 years old before they could be let off the bus. That was something I wasn't used to. Most was pre-K or Head Start, pre-K, and kindergarten could not be left off the bus without an adult. I pulled up to a stop in one of the worst areas of the area, and I told the kids, everybody needs to stay seated. I need to find out how old y'all are, and it's got to be a parent out. Otherwise, you got to go back to school. They didn't listen. 60 some odd little kids plugged up the aisle. I said, I need you to sit down. They wouldn't. Had the door closed. 25 kids get off at this stop. There's 2 mothers out there. I flipped the emergency release, stood at the bottom. I said, I've got a problem. I said, management has called me in the office, said I'm not to let any of the kids out until I make sure there's an adult. And I know that we've been letting them off at these stops, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore. I'm trying to follow the rules so that I don't get in trouble with my management. A girl came up and shoved into me. I said, no, I had my hand up on the doorway and I said, ma'am, I got to shut the door. She goes, no. I said, I need to shut the door. And I flipped it and the door shut. She grabbed it, pulled those doors open, and the kids go spilling out of the bus. I immediately called dispatch, informed them what happened. You would think that they'd send an administrator out at that bus stop and say, look, we can't be forcing the doors open. That driver has to follow the rules of the board. And when I said something to one of the managers, I said, is there any reason you can't be out there? And this is what the response was I got. That's not my job description, Pacific. I said, so basically, you're going to let parents bum rush the bus, force the air doors open, and do what they want. So this happened another day. And I told the kids, I said, if y'all get up again and you're not going to sit down and let me dismiss you orderly and make sure parents are there, I'm going back to school. Same two parents started approaching the bus. The kids were yelling and screaming. They wouldn't sit down. I said, we're going back to school. The school was close. It was literally a few blocks away. They didn't want the kid crossing two busy streets. I saw the parents coming and I drove. The kids pelted me with cookies, wadded up balls of paper, called me bitch. Stuff's flying at the back of my head. I pulled up at the school, opened the doors. I said, get out. Principal came out to the bus. Said, you can't just, I said, do you know what is going on? Do you know what just happened? Do you know what happened the other day? Yeah, but. And I called dispatch. I said, I'm going back to school. Here's what happened. Dispatch did not say, just let him off. 10-4 Pacific. I'll let the school know. My supervisor said, I'll come back and get those kids. And I told the principal, I said, my supervisor will come back. I got in trouble with the big boss. He had said he was writing me up. I never saw a copy of it. The big boss no longer works there, and it has nothing to do with me. In all the years that I had driven, I was like, what is going on? I'm just doing my job. And you want to know what happened? Several of the drivers called me and said, you know, when your supervisor got those kids, all she did is open the doors and let them out. I said, I know. So I get called on because a kid got off at the wrong stop with his cousin. And I got all these peewee kids. You can tell who's 8 or 7. And I'd ask, hey, this isn't your stop. You got 71 kids on a bus. And I don't care what anybody says. I've had routes where it is hard to tell certain students apart from one another. They got brothers and sisters and they look very similar. And I had gone to management. I said, can I get a monitor so we can find out the kids' names, what their age is, and I can put highlights at the stop. This one has to have a parent. They wouldn't work with me. I was out there. Kids were being added to the bus. Took 20 minutes before I could leave the school to get these kids to sit down. And they wonder why there's a bus driver shortage. The day I was supposed to meet with the high schooler and the parents, I got my bus. I pulled up at my layover before starting the first tier, and I had sprayed. We've been using COVID spray on the buses. I didn't have any problem. And I went to check my route sheet, and I sat down on one of the student seats. Nobody was on board. All of a sudden, I started getting this head spinning vertigo. It was very bad. I went out the door, did dry heaves, threw up, nothing came out. I sat in the seat. And it got worse. I felt nausea so bad, and I thought, man, I cannot drive. I better call. Called my supervisor, said, I'm going to need you to come and get me in the bus, and I'm going to need you to cover the route. I said, I've got vertigo, my head is spinning, and I'm throwing up. How embarrassing. A man who driven 25 years to have to call that in. This is not something I manufactured. I faced the music Even with bad kids, bad routes, I am fighting Irish, I don't let something whip me. I want to go to my job. When my time is off for holidays, I've earned it. Most of the people I work with in transportation, we've got a couple days off, or there's a couple days off for the school district that I drove the bus for. They're sleeping all day. They're lounging around, and I'm working on my house remodel. I worked long hours yesterday. I didn't get done and start cooking dinner until nearly 9 o'clock. No vertigo. When I get in my truck and I got to do errands, I get a little woozy. I had to stop driving. That wasn't by doctor's orders. I went and told my boss I can't do it anymore, man. None of this is embellished. None of this is untrue. I've been called names by students. I've been threatened by students. And I have done what a lot of people in my ethnic background don't do. I had moved to an area of the country where I was the minority, on my bus. And I had to work doubly hard in my job while still trying to follow company or district expectations, principals at the school, staff liked me. African-American staff liked me. But what is happening in the public education system in many places is administrators and people in authority, their hands are tied because if a parent threatens to pull their kid out of a school, there's money representing each student that's in attendance, and they ain't going to do it. And Dr. Spock said that spanking damages an ego. Now, that is not. I'm not one of these radicals that thinks, the school bus driver should be involved in physical discipline. Absolutely no. But it really bothers me when an administrator says, well, we're going to have to pull the camera on your bus and see what was going on. And I want to say, do you do that on the teachers in the classroom when they tell you they're having a problem with an unruly student? Oh, you don't have cameras in the classroom. And then we've had cases where the videos don't see what's going on. Some buses I was on had the 3 cameras, but none in the very back of the bus. You got seat backs that are as high as me seated. And there's a lot of stuff that can be going on down behind that privacy shield. I found black and milds on the floor. Evidence of pot smoking. They'll smoke the black and mild to mask the smell of the marijuana. When I had a monitor one day, I said, I'm going to need you to sit in the back 2/3 of the bus. We're trying to find somebody who's lighting up. She said to me, I don't want to sit back there. I said, how am I supposed to catch the problem? That's why I asked for assistance. I know drivers that are scared. They will not get up out of their seat and walk to the back of their bus. In fact, I was told by my supervisor, Pacific, on these high school routes, do not walk to the back of your bus. You don't know if these kids got a gun. You don't. I said, you're telling me not to walk to the back of my bus when there's a problem. Can I see a raise of hands for anybody who agrees with me that we're living in a country where they're letting children rule everybody? What's wrong with this picture? I'm not attacking school boards. I'm not attacking transportations. We are living in a world that is in such a state of change and flux. Now, there's other reasons bus drivers quit. They want to smoke dope, get drunk, and get a random, they're out the door. They get involved in a domestic abuse situation with their significant other, they're out the door. They get in a bad enough accident, they're out the door. And I went to my supervisor and said, how am I supposed to take attendance in the dark when I got 10, 15 kids getting on a bus stop? I got to watch traffic. I'm supposed to say, what is your name? And you got high schoolers, no, I don't have to give it to you. And I said, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. I'll give you the student counts, but this checking off circles or boxes while driving, we can do it when you get to school. Oh, I tried. That didn't work either. Then I get a list and none of the students are on the bus, and none of them. And I'm writing pages and pages of spiral notebook paper. Can you write your name down? Because I can't understand what is being said. The spelling is different. And what places are doing is now you have a tablet. You got to sign into the tablet. And to do your attendance, you got to scroll down, find the school, AM, PM, give your signature, give the counts. And I noticed something when trying to figure out what was causing the video. I've got an iPhone. And in between routes, I'm looking at screen time. And I finally said, I can't look at this thing anymore. I can do my laptop. I can do a little bit on my phone. Now they got you on a computer screen again. I can't do it. Then you don't have your bus ready. You got to get in a different bus. And that bus doesn't work. It won't pass a pre-trip. You get in a second bus and then a third bus. And then you got to remember to sign over the tablet into you and blah, 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 and that you're subbing this route. Said, why are you to save paper? And I've had drivers tell me, I can't even figure this stupid thing out, and I'm not going to do it. I don't believe in insubordination. But seriously, can't technology get better than that? Can it just have a bubble that pops up? How many on your morning route? Done. You got to do this and scroll down and click this and do this and do this and signature and put in the number. You got a signature every time you do a count for every single school, every part of the day? Yep, sure do. But it's funny. You got to do all that. But when you got these bad kids cussing you out, causing unsafe things on the bus, you write them up and you write them up. I counted 38 write-ups on a student, 7th grader, beating up kids, cussing at kids, bossing people around, being disrespectful to me. And one day when my bus broke down, I had to go back to the shop, get another bus. And another driver said, Pacific, I'll get the back end of your route since I know it. You just get the first part. That way you can make up time. I said, thank you. That kid got on his bus at a stop, not his. Started beating up another girl on that bus. And then finally, the school suspended him for the rest of the year. Let me tell you, that was in 2020. A week later, we had the shutdown. But before that, mother come walking out in the street where I had to stop over the door. Hey, can you please let my son ride? I have no way to get him to school. I said, ma'am, the school district made the decision. I cannot. No. I said, I've tried to work with your son. I've had him in the front. I said, 38 write-ups, ma'am. I said, he's getting in fights with other students. I said, what he did was on another bus the other day. I said, I can't do that. This woman reeks of alcohol morning and evening. She come up to my driver's window, I can smell it. She come up to the bottom step and I can smell it. Not on the bus. And this is what she says to me. Oh, you can't do this, but you'll deny my child access to a public education. Does anybody know? I'm single, I live alone, and I'm not perfect at all, but I don't drink. And you're sitting there with a woman who ought to be ashamed of herself, that has no control of her own son. is going to flip the script and tell me I'm the bad guy because I won't take her son to school. That's the world that you and I live in America today. Isn't that fun? Who wants to deal with that? And for us to maintain professional candor, when everything in me wants to say, really? You might want to get off your alcohol. You might want to discipline this boy. Seriously, are you talking about me? Girl, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I wouldn't have a job if I was doing wrong. What the public doesn't realize about school bus drivers is they think we're dumb. A lot of them think we're stupid. They can't get another job. They drive a school bus. They do look down on us. There are people that respect us and know what we do. Look at the people that run your stop sign. Yes, they run school bus stop sign. You got these bad kids, and it never fails. Some high schoolers, 2 girls, African-American girls, are pulling hair, biting, calling each other the B word, F you. And I'm trying to watch students getting on the bus. I'm like, hey. And 3 cars are going through my stop sign with kids crossing. Oh, yeah, this stuff never happens when you're ready for it. Explosion in the back of the bus, 3 cars running your stop sign, student almost gets hit, and you're just like, what now? And you got to maintain control of you. What I'm saying, this is reality. This video should be played in every school district in the country. Not because I'm perfect, but I've had experience. Snow country, blizzards, freezing rain. Driving bus 380 with a middle and high school route combined that started in the country. And I got through the country fine, and I come into the city to go to one of the high schools. I stop at the stop sign, everything's fine. As soon as I cross the intersection, it's a curvy road that runs between mansions and a big, notable Catholic church in town that has its own school. Then imagine driving an old Detroit diesel Ford Ward with a stick shift, and you come around that first curve, and as soon as you come around, you see cars sliding all directions. You're like, oh, crap. And I'm hitting neutral, and I'm gently fanning the brakes. In the back of the bus, it's the temperature shifted by a degree, and the back of the bus hits the curb. Boom. Boom. It's so slick. It's hitting the curb, jerking the students, and bouncing back. And the kids are screaming. I'm not going fast. 5 miles an hour. I'm trying to get it stopped. And only by an act of God was I able to steer and thread around all these cars that were all over this narrow, curvy street. Didn't touch a one. I get down to the stop sign and stop. I said, y'all all right back there? I said, it's really bad out here. I apologize. None of those high schoolers looked at me with disrespect. I was on the level. I went to make a left turn to go down to the high school. Straight across the street was the Catholic Church's school. When I turned left, the bus went straight. I rolled into the parking lot. The front wheel bumped the curb. I set the brake. And I told the high schoolers, I said, here's where we're at, folks. The high school's right there next door. You can get out and walk on the sidewalk because it's not even blocked. It's right there. But I said, it is slick, it is dangerous. So if you get off this bus, you are at your own risk. They got off. And they found out real quick, you better sit on your butt and slide down the slate hill to the school. I was stuck for an hour with the middle schoolers. They opened up. They never spoke to me. Man, it's really bad out here. You really handled the bus good. I kept them entertained. We were laughing. And I looked, I said, oh my gosh. I said, I've got some bad news for you. They said, what? I said, a snowplow with salt and sand is coming. So our little party on the bus is over. They all moaned. Oh man, we were having fun. We'd sit in here and talk to you all day. That was then. You think I want to be trapped with today's kids for an hour in an ice storm? Hell to the nah. No. I've gotten around other bus drivers on a Facebook page. And I'm amazed at the Karens out there that judge and criticize and say so many things. To me, the long hair, the chain I wear. And that wouldn't be allowed at my job. Well, I don't work at your job, so who cares? People judge a book by its cover. I'd wake up on a Saturday morning in Duluth. Too early for the first DTA, Duluth Transit Authority bus to get me to 8 miles from my house. I grabbed my metal box with my few necessities in it, some snacks, my radio, and I'd walk all the way to the bus terminal, get the snow off of my bus. You know, it was 20 below. Get the bus pre-tripped and started. Go over to Wisconsin and pick up one of the senior high basketball teams and spend a day Menominee, Eau Claire, Rice Lake, Maple, doing basketball tournaments. Were you out all day? I love those trips. One of the dispatchers one day, nobody was there when I'd get there. But one day there was a few buses that had to leave, so he was there. And I come in, I had a scarf wrapped around my face. The wind chill was somewhere between 65 and 85 below. Had icicles all on the outside of the scarf. My glasses froze the minute I walked into the building. He said, I can't believe that you walk in this weather and you come here on a Saturday to do a dang bus trip. And I said, Louie, I love driving a bus. He said, you know, you're crazy. He said, you moved from Arizona and you're walking. He says, we don't even walk around in that stuff. Man, they knew my dedication. And the last place I drove for, the call-ins are ridiculous. Somebody gets butthurt about management. Somebody gets butthurt at something. I'm not coming in today. We are living in a very different world today, folks. And you can say what you want, Karens. You can criticize me till the cows come home. I have outstanding references. Okay? That supervisor never came up to me once. I came to work. I was off for 2 days. I'd get up in the morning and I'm like, oh man, I can't do it. And I'd call in. I had 137 sick hours, so I was more than fine. I don't call in. I got a cold, I show up to work. But you got a head spinning and fever? Nope. When I got COVID? Nope. I got the Delta variant in 2021. And I tell you what, that thing kicked my butt right here, quarantining in my own room in my own house. I missed 7 days of work. Never in my life had I missed a day in school bus. When I was in Denver, Colorado years ago, I did my morning route and felt the nausea through the route, got through the route. I walked into my dispatcher and I said, I'm not going to be here this afternoon. She goes, you don't look good. I said, man, I'm dizzy and I'm going to throw up and I got to go. So I missed an afternoon. But guess what? I was there the morning. Perfect attendance for 7 years, Denver schools. We'd have days where we punched in a half an hour early when there was snow on the ground to clean our buses off. You think I didn't have kids and routes that I just thought, I don't want to drive this? I liked doing my job. I liked coming to work because I believe what makes you stronger as a man is face the day, whatever comes. And the public out there, the suits and ties, the minivan moms, the people that block up the bus zone, and the war you got to go through trying to get people to not park where the school buses unload, and the stuff that we go through, John Q. Public has no idea. In Denver, I'd come down narrow old school streets. I'm more than halfway down between blocks in a transit bus, 80-something passenger, and a SUV turns the corner. I'm more than halfway down, roars up on me, and you have a guy look at me and go like this. And I'm just looking at him going, really? I'm going to back up a loaded bus for you? I always look. If there's a car more down there, I'm going to let a car go through. I'm courteous. You think that public out there that got something called a driver's license that they grabbed out of a grab bag at a thrift store knows how to drive? Let me tell you, our society looks down on a school bus. They don't want to be behind it. They have no conscience about just running a stop sign. I had a guy in Duluth. There was no curb and sidewalk. I was centered in my lane is a narrow lane. Kids are standing on the lawn. And as I open the door, this guy in a suit and tie comes around a Toyota Corolla between my door and the kids on somebody's lawn. He was behind me. Ask any school bus driver about the crazy, I'm going to say the word, shit that goes on of near misses. And you can't get the plate because you're just watching your kids. And then you're turning the plates and you don't ever hear if anything happens. And look at all the stuff you got to fill out on the dang thing. Age and sex and ethnicity of the driver. It had all black tinted windows. I couldn't tell. And the police said, well, we don't have enough information. We're not going to do anything. Guy got a description of the car, got the plate. Shouldn't that be enough? The guy can say, well, I wasn't driving it. Doesn't matter. You're going to pay the ticket or you bring the guy to court that was driving your car. Easy. Somebody's going to pay for that. When they are going up on a lawn, when they're passing you on the right, they should lose their damn license. But folks, we live in a country that isn't going to solve the problem. School bus drivers take it in the shorts, take it in the shorts, take it in the shorts, take it in the shorts. There's many reasons why drivers quit. They're not satisfied with the pay. They're not satisfied with management. Look, I've worked enough transportation places to know there's personas in management that drive you crazy. There's people in transportation that I love and adore at every place I've worked. And you got know-it-alls and I'm a safe driver and I'm good and I'm an expert and I know everything and I stay away from people like that. Especially when you live in a place that hasn't experienced freezing rain, snow, and a student running down the aisle of your bus on a slight grade in rush hour traffic and you're sliding. Want to see my horsey? And to have ethnic students threaten to call the board on you because a student was acting up on the bus while loading. A middle school student comes up, I'm not in the aisle seating kids, and the kid had just hit a female on the bus. I said, not today. I said, I don't want you in the back. Yeah, I think he grabbed her purse. That's what it was. And she said, hey, and started. I said, you need to move up front. No, I don't. He shoves me in the chest, says, you need to get the F out of my way. I said, you get off my bus right now. And I knew the administrator. Black man, mister, this guy just shoved me. He stormed on there and says, get off. His older brother got on the bus the next morning and said, I want you to know we're going to the board about you. My mother's going to go to the board about. I said, for what? You're racist. I said, I'm racist because I put your brother off the bus. I said, that doesn't involve you, number one. But I said, go ask the administrator. Why don't you pull the camera? I said, I'm not worried about the board being called. Nothing ever was told to me. Nothing was ever come my way. You live in a world now where black children are being taught that whites are racist or whites are bad, and I'm going to say it. Critical race theory being taught in schools that is shaming whites. I don't care what side of politics you're on. That's wrong. And if you think that only whites are capable of racism, walk in my shoes. Go where I've been. I come with love. There's a lot of people in this country that come with hate. It bothers me I wasn't able to meet the parents. When our safety guy came and got me, he was driving fast. I said, man, you got to slow down. I said, if I tell you to stop, stop, because I don't want to throw up in your vehicle. And I mean, we literally are going by the high school I'm supposed to deliver for. I said, don't stop here. We go down to the neighborhood. I said, I need you to turn, get off the main road, open the door, lost it. None of it in the car. He handed me a rag and I wiped my mouth and I said, I'm so sorry. You have to see this, but I try not to get it. He chuckled and he said, I appreciate that, Pacific. I said, take me to the back of the lot. Why? I said, I'm going to lay down in one of those spare buses and see if this goes away so I can drive my afternoon. I laid down across the seats in a spare bus. The windows were down. In fact, it was a bus. It was no longer commissioned. The windows were missing. The engine had been pulled out. That's how much I'm dedicated to my damn job. I laid there. I still had the vertigo. It didn't get any better, but I felt a break. I got in my truck. I drove home, promptly threw up when I came in the house. I notified my supervisor I won't be in the afternoon. I was hoping I would, but I can't do it. I was out several days. I went to a doctor. They had no explanation. I thought it was the stress. Doubles. 9 routes in an afternoon. Crossing railroad tracks umpteen times. 2 different routes going totally contrary ways through the same neighborhood. And you're shaking your head, checking and boom, boom, boom. And I was trying to figure out, was it the COVID spray I was using? Was it looking at the phone in between? I got rid of the sprays. I did this. I did this. And I didn't do what some drivers do. I didn't try to get on light duty. I didn't try to use up all my sick. I submitted my resignation. Said, unless you have something else for me to do, but I cannot drive right now. I am taking myself out of that. I can't have this head spinning nausea. I can't do this. Fortunately, there was something else for me to do. I'm no longer driving. My stress went from here to the basement. Do I miss driving the bus? Absolutely. I like being captain of the ship. I don't miss the stress. I don't miss the disrespect and the hate. But guess what? I'm in the same place and I go out and run my errands and I'll run into a kid. You used to be my driver. Mom, that was my driver. He's cool, Mr. Chain. And inside you want to cry. I got through to some. The way I lived and the way I was, I got through to some, and they didn't see me as some white racist. When a teenage girl sees you in public and says, "Oh my gosh, Pacific," and just throws her arms around me, you're just like, whoa, what? Yeah, I care about my job. I care about my students. Leaning out the window and yelling, "Hey, that means stop." And you see some woman looking at me and 80 miles an hour through. The kids yell, "Why are you yelling at her?" White guy yelling at a black woman, of course. So that woman just ran the stop sign. You kids, I'm responsible for your safety. I don't want to see you get hit and killed. Guess what? The kids start to realize, what? He actually cares about us. Yeah, I do. Even when some of you don't care about me, my feelings, my dignity, my worth, you don't even know who I am, my experiences, and yeah. You know what? To get up and get your butt out of bed anymore seems to be a challenge in today's times with COVID and random acts of crazy behavior. Here in the town I live in, city I live in, some woman got pissed off at one of the restaurants that they didn't put the biscuit in there and took her car and rammed it through the front of the restaurant and kept going. And the only reason the car stopped is when debris fell on her car. And the woman had a history of running into stuff. And we had a woman go to a McDonald's. They didn't give her a cookie and she pulled out a gun. We got to get up at butt crack of dawn and drive a bus. Pre-trip it? No. It's leaking. Can't take it. Go get this spare. Oh, the stop sign won't come out. Can't take it. Then you get in the third bus. All the windows are down, the roof hatch is down, and guess what? It's pouring rain. Trash everywhere. And I'm about to say, I'm not getting in the seat. The driver's seat is soaking wet. Forget this. So the fourth bus, it's a mess, but it works. Then you got to get up and deal with kids smoking dope. The whole bus smells like pot. I drive with my lights on inside it. I stop, I walk the bus, I don't even say anything. I walk up and down sniffing. They can't hear it. What are you doing? Why you stop? What are you doing? What's the matter, mister? I don't even respond. Kids with that shitty grin, knowing that they got away with it, thinking it's funny. Why can't the administrator say, look, he smelled it, I smell it, you're off the bus for the rest of the year? Why are they not putting it back on the parents? Because they're afraid of them. You got some bus drivers that have just told me, Pacific, it's none of your business what they do. You're right. Until they make it mine, until they pollute my air. I have allergies. I don't want to smell that stank. We got districts I've worked for, you are not allowed to spray anything on the bus because of perfume and chemical sensitivities. Bus drivers are second guessed, got to pull the video, and then they claim they don't find something, and guess what? 1 for the kids, 0 for me. And what was really funny is this kid that I had to meet, the folks, there was a African-American girl that sat in the seat on the right front and always talked up a storm to me. Very nice girl, an achiever. And she said, I can't stand him. He bothers everybody. Several kids, when I had to deal with him, said, "Man, can you just ride the bus and knock it off, dude?" When your own peers, the problem isn't me. Do I get up thinking I'm perfect? Do I think I'm perfect as student management? No, there's times I've lost it and yelled. How can you not? Did I cuss them out and call them names? Did I touch them? No. Some of you districts, some of you bus companies, especially in harder areas of the country, are wondering why you're losing drivers. That might be a good place to start. If you want to use the word systemic, there's a systemic level of disobedience, kids to authority today on any level. The cops are hated. Anybody in authority is going to be tested and challenged. But when I hear a message on the radio from a British preacher nailing the situation in the school boards, parents, and the parents are afraid of the children, and it all boils down to people don't want to stand up and say, we're not going to permit this behavior in our school district. We're not going to permit this danger to the drivers. There are some districts I work for where if I'd have called in and said the kid is out here smoking marijuana, they would say, shut the door and leave. You will not pick him up. Pacific, did you copy that last transmission? Inside I go, yeah, I did. I'm not going to respond because I don't want to end up in office because I'm about to have a cow. Somebody came up to me and said, you know, they were talking to you. I said, yeah, I didn't want to answer. You can get in trouble for that. I said, no, I can't. I did what I was told to do. Does management sometimes understand that we're looking like a complete imbecile when we have no authority whatsoever? And I got to submit to some pot smoking mouthy kid who's constantly acting up. He doesn't care about an education. He doesn't care at all. And when the administrators at the school come out and tell me, and the bus coach comes out and says, this kid is an ASS. He does this to all of us every day. He needs to just stay home. He ain't getting an education. Did I just confess that? Am I trying to get anybody in trouble? No, because I didn't mention the who, the what, the where. But folks, this crap goes on. Social media. I've had kids get in fights on my bus over something that somebody posted on Facebook, and they're yelling and screaming about it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And a year ago, we were getting a memo from the school. They were actually handing it to the kids. And the high schoolers threw them all over the floor of my bus. And I'm like, what is this? And I read it. We noticed there's a trend on social media for kids to tear up the bathrooms, to slap the teacher on the butt, to do things and film it. Know that this jurisdiction of public education dumb is not going to tolerate this stuff. Other drivers came to me and informed me of last year there was the deep throat challenge. Somebody was going to video record a student, female, doing a blowjob on a guy on a bus. I'm like, oh, great. That's just, they're not afraid of cameras, folks. When I drove in Colorado, before we left the school, I gave a quick 2-minute spiel. And as I'm telling the kids, look, what was going on in here yesterday, we're not having that. It was a middle school. A Hispanic girl pulls out her phone, stands up and gets up into my face. She's got her mother on video and says, Mom, this is why we're late. And we weren't late. I had to pull over the bus and move students from time to time. I said, Mom, Your daughter was one of the students who had to move the other day. You might want to ask her about that. And she's videotaping me. I'm simply giving directives to kids before we leave the school because they're out of their seats. They're drawing penises on the seats and throwing pens and markers and all kinds of paraphernalia out the windows, hitting pedestrians on the corner, stuff like that. I went back and told my administrator what was going on. She made a call to parents, said, your daughter's off. We're not having this. Some places that I worked, the students are not supposed to have their cell phones out on the bus or the schools. But these kids got phones and they're recording you and taking pictures of you without you even knowing it. I could spend hours talking about my life as a school bus driver, but no sense of beating a dead horse. I gave you enough. I remember years ago in Duluth, I'd get so many gifts in the holidays, coffee cups, school bus drivers are big wheels, a gift card. Now we're seeing less and less of that in some places. I don't hate children. But when you live in a society that's coddling, enabling this kind of behavior, you're forced to do one of two things: go along with the show or make a job change. I made a job change because of the vertigo, not because of what the kids were doing. I was more than ready to meet mom and pa and a student. And believe me, it's very uncomfortable when you, as a white guy, when you're the minority, it fully was, obviously this is going to be a loaded situation. And I was ready in my mind. Ma'am, sir, I've been driving 25 years. I was going to name where I drove. I was going to mention the ethnic thing. I had routes that were all Hispanic. I had routes that were all Black. I had routes that had a mix of Vietnamese, Black, and Asian. No accusation can be made about me being racist, impartial, treating one group of students one way and another. That doesn't exist with me. Your son has been doing this and this and this and this. We don't get paid enough to have to sit in the hot seat defending why we wrote up the kid X amount of times, why the administrator wants to just remove him from the bus, but we have to have a meeting with the parents where I'm the one that's going to be examined as if though I'm the criminal. I was ready to face this. And I even let my supervisor know, I need you to call the school and tell them what happened, that I'm not going to be able to meet with the parents today, but we can reschedule this. That didn't happen because I didn't go back to bus driving. The next couple of weeks, I was up and down with this, and I said, okay, it's time. And I was ready to quit. I didn't know if I could do anything without the vertigo. The vertigo's still there. I get that wooziness. I get it almost daily. It's not severe. I don't feel like I'm throwing up or out of balance. I was putting shiplap on a ceiling where you tuck and groove and doing molding and didn't feel it all day. Something's shifted in me. Apparently, if I drive and you're constantly turning and backing and chicken head going back and forth, I can't do that anymore. I want to go back to driving. I'd like to drive an international lumber dump truck, be a flatbed. I'd like to do something. But I continue to work with students because I believe we need to be there. But I no longer drive a school bus. I remember I had 393 years ago in Minnesota. It was an S-Series International with the square hood. The boss had painted the fenders black. His buses were very distinct. I love that big 3-spoke steering wheel, the truck style dash. The buses have changed so much, and I know people have their preferences. I'm not a fan of the Thomas C2s. I'm not a fan of any of these new buses. I miss those old Beast International buses of the DT 466. They were built like a tank. My bus started every day. I'd have 2 feet of snow on the ground out in the country. Cars wait at the end of their cleared driveways for me to pick up the kid, and they'd follow in my tire tracks out to the highway. I remember pastor's wife, pastor and his wife, their daughter rode my bus, and she made me one of those glue together the little color beads of a school bus. I ended up going to their church down the road. I had it was either an Amish or a Hutterite family. Girls with the long hair in a bun, always wore dresses, got on my bus in the country. They handed me an invitation. Mother was inviting me to dinner at their home, and I couldn't make it because I didn't own an automobile at the time. They were so far out of the country, I had no way to get there. And I said, please let your mother know I don't have transportation. I ride the city bus to my bus. I wanted so bad to meet that family. I'd always been curious about the Amish, the Quakers, the Hutterites, and their simple, uncluttered lifestyle. I like driving a bus because I love diversity. I like people. But our society, and it's not going to happen. It's my opinion, our society is headed over the brink. And I'm sorry to be negative, but it's headed over a cliff. Racial hatred is encouraged by our media. It's encouraged by a wall building, division causing critical race theory in public. That stuff has no place in a public education. I don't know what the easy answer is, but society as a whole needs to say, yes, children have rights to food, safety, shelter, and appropriate behavior with adults to them, but they don't have the right to run their mouths and stand up and disrespect authority and do it and do it and do it and get away with it. And let me make something very clear. There are teachers in the public school system that go through the same thing I do. I don't want to fail to mention that. Trying to do a class, trying to put forth a curriculum, and got to deal with these kind of kids and get no backing and no anything. My hat is off to you. You got to deal with them in the classroom all day. I got to deal with them with anywhere from a 45-minute to an hour plus route. But at least the teacher gets to face her class. I got my back to these kids every day while I was driving. I got to work an hour early. I still do. Or 30 minutes early. Why? Because I love my job. Because I'm glad I have work. I start before I punch in. I'd pre-trip my bus before punching time. Pre-trip it, fuel it, do all that. Park it in a spot, turn off the bus, and then go clock in. I wanted to be ready. I don't want to be late on my routes. I want my kids to know and have the consistency. And I had kids, even in the place that I'm in now. Oh my gosh, when you're gone, the other drivers are so late. We can count on you. Kids need consistency. Kids need a driver that cares. I didn't have to yell and scream about trash on the floor. I kept my bus so clean that the kids got it. You see, when you keep your bus clean and kids throw a bunch of crap in then it highlights. I just look at the seat. And when the kids get on in the afternoon, I said, hey, when you got off this morning, there's a half spilled cup of coffee and crap all over the floor. Could you please not do that? And then they give you the shitty grin. I'm sorry, mister. Am I an expert in student management? No. Do I have a good grasp on psychology of people after being involved with transportation for 25 plus years? Absolutely. I wish I could move up. I wish I could still be in transportation in a higher capacity. I have a brain, but unfortunately, in transportation, there's always, in a lot of places I work, there's politics, and I'm not a suit and tie kind of guy. I don't believe in just saying what you want to hear. And people like me, we're not popular for those positions. I don't believe in kissing, but I believe in doing your job with excellence so that you don't end up in the principal's office. I believe in respecting. And this is something the public doesn't realize. I told people when they drive a bus, I said, everybody out there's your boss. Oh, what do you mean? That's all them people driving cars. You're a rolling yellow billboard. You don't use your signal. You roll through that stop sign. You don't do something right. Easy to call. 1-800-YELLOW. Can I help you? No, we got supervisors and people assessing our job every day. When you run your mouth at that mother who is angry that you wrote up her kid, if you allow it, school bus driving will teach you how to be a better person, how to disarm angry adults. And when I see some surly looking woman standing there, I'm thinking, oh boy, she's mad. You don't say, yes, ma'am, I wrote up your student and this is what I tried to do. I had him in the front. I tried to work with him, but he punched her. I can't let that one go. Even the Bible says that something to the effect a calm response turns back anger. You got somebody who's loaded for bear. You got people that live in their depressing little world and they want nothing more than to go do a lawsuit on the bus driver in the school district because their life is miserable. Don't give them the ammo. Calmly discuss what happened. And when you tell them that you tried, I could have written him up for this, but I put him in the front. I did this. I tried to care, but he's just not getting it. And then when he hit the girl, then the mother's gears suddenly shift. Wow, I didn't know all this was going on. He had him in the front and he wrote him up now? Man, you get home. I'm going to tear up your behind. Here's my number. You have a problem. You let me know. And I apologize. I said, no, ma'am, I understand. Customer service skills, man. But you want to know why there's a bus driver shortage? When the kids have more authority than we do, woe to a nation. Woe to a country. This is Pacific, signing off.